Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the third day of March 2023, Friday of the first week of Lent. It is the sixth day of Lent. Today we're almost to the conclusion of our first week of the Lenten journey. It has been quite a week with just a small birthday celebration in the midst of it. But we are coming to the conclusion of our first week of Lent with just 6 minus 40 is... 6 minus 40, 44, 34 days. 34 days to go. I do not know math. This day is also the commemoration of St. Katherine Drexel, the foundress of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. It's a commemoration. It should be memorial, but because it falls during Lent, all the saints that we observe, except for the Annunciation and St. Joseph, get reduced in rank, it's called. And so they're commemorations only. And basically we just remember their prayers at Mass, and we celebrate Lent for the rest of the liturgies during the day. But Katherine Drexel, the first American born saint. She is the second saint of the United States, Elizabeth and Seton being the first. But Katherine Drexel was the first American-born saint. So we honor her today. The Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, again, who did great work in Philadelphia, one of the great centers of Catholicism in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Remember her and the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Looking behind me is the great Marianne Cope playground. Again, Marianne Cope, another Franciscan saint who worked again with Damien of Molokai in leper colonies in Hawaii. We have the wonderful playground from our preschool named for her. Coming up this way, you can see the portico of the preschool leading to the preschool main doors behind me. On this on this Friday of this first week of Lent, we are discussing the mind of God, plumbing the mind of God, kind of the words to investigating the mind of God. And God himself speaks through the prophet Ezekiel and basically says, again, if you are just and do wicked things, you are going to be punished for that. But if you are wicked and turn to justice, your wickedness will be forgotten. And because you turned to justice, that will be what is important. It is kind of a reversal of what it is that we as human beings sometimes promote when in our relationships with each other and in trying to navigate our relationships with each other. Wickedness can always only be wickedness, and virtue is always virtue, despite where it lands or where it ends. But God says differently. And again, the people say that God is unfair because the wicked should always be punished, and those who are virtuous should always be virtuous, even though they turn to wickedness. It doesn't mean, again, if you are virtuous and righteous and whatever it is, and you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden all that's forgotten. But if you turn your mind to things that are working against the welfare of human beings, that work against the life that we've been given, that work against human welfare and human concern and the common good of us, of us all as human beings, well, then that has to be reckoned. There has to be reckoning for that, because you can't basically play both games, both sides, because sometimes the turn to wickedness is because something is easy, or else there's a personal benefit because of it. But the selfishness and the arrogance and the wickedness that is done by people constantly, if all of a sudden there is this great change of heart, which can happen, God says, in which now goodness and the common welfare and the common good become the focus of the individual, well, then that has to be preserved, and that has to be acknowledged, and that has to be cultivated. God takes us where we are at always, and God asks us to be people who are mindful and conscious, of what it is that we're doing and why it is that we're doing it. Lent is that time to consider these various deeds, and not necessarily that we're just always wicked and a mistake, but that we can move from that we are not just one thing only, but that there is much to us. In the same way there's complexity with God, there is complexity with us as human beings, and we have to take the time and investment to understand that, and to be able to navigate through it. In Matthew's Gospel today, we hear a reading that we just heard a couple of Sundays ago about the about the righteousness of Pharisees. And again, Jesus using exaggeration, basically to say that if you think the Pharisees have it all together, well, then you have to be better than they are. And basically what the Pharisees are doing is stopping the work of God from taking root because of their concern for every last little law and every last little regulation and things like that that Judaism was trying to promote. Again, if you want to live that way, if you want to live by only laws and rules and regulations, go right ahead, Jesus says. But make sure that you do even better than these Pharisees, which is again a contradiction in terms because they aren't doing better at all. And then Jesus offers advice, for us to reconcile with each other, for us to be able to end the quarrels and the hatreds among us on our own terms, on our own time, in our own way, not on our own terms, but in a sense in our own ways, without having to run to justice, without having to run perhaps to the sacrament of penance, without having to run to all these kinds of things that are set up by us as human beings to kind of make sure that justice is delivered, but sometimes it is not. And so Jesus says, if something is wrong between two human beings, you rectify that by seeking forgiveness, by seeking reconciliation, by healing the hurts and harms of life, not necessarily by jumping into structures which may not always offer the best course of action for what it is that we need as human beings. And may the Lord give you his peace.